And President Trump's approval ratings rising too, now at 42%. And another new poll by USA Today and Suffolk University shows 50%, half of Americans say that the president is right, that the special counsel's investigation is a, quote, witch hunt. All this as the economy is moving forward. But last night, Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren again misled the American people in the income inequality segment in the CNN town hall. Now remember, Senator Warren and Bernie Sanders, also Alexandria Cortez, think new higher taxes that the big government politicians could collect will stop all of that. Watch this.
When you've got a government that works for the rich and it's not working nearly as well for anyone else, that's corruption. And we need to call it out plain and simple. We get a 2% tax on the 75,000 richest families in this country. We would have enough money to provide universal child care, universal pre-K, universal pre-K for every child in America and still have $2 trillion left over.
Let's bring in Heritage Foundation research fellow Joel Griffith. Joel, your take on that?
Oh, there's so much wrong with what she said. Number one, I want to start by saying her calling for this wealth tax and accumulated wealth is unconstitutional. She should know that as a Harvard law professor, but it's unnecessary and it's economically destructive. And her thoughts on income inequality, they ignore the basic reality, and that is that the middle class is shrinking, but it's shrinking for all the right reasons. If you look back at the past 40 years of data, the middle class has shrunk by 5%. But adjusted for inflation and family size, that's because the upper income and the wealthy, they've actually grown. It's actually doubled in proportion over the last 40 years. So people are moving from the middle class to the higher income strata. That is something that we should be celebrating rather than denigrating.
You know, the Democrat and media's income inequality arguments are completely flawed and wrong. That's what economists keep saying. Why? The arguments are based on data from tax returns. But Joel, tax returns do not include people's 401ks, pensions, Social Security, and Medicare. Here's what else is not on the tax returns. Again, Democrats like to make that the stock market is rigged against the middle class, but the middle class owns a lot of stock. This is from the Federal Reserve. $16.1 trillion in stock owned by U.S. households. Nearly $16 trillion in home equity, more than $13 trillion in equity in small businesses, nearly $10 trillion in bank deposits, nearly $8 trillion in mutual funds. Again, none of that is shown in tax returns. And a lot of labor unions own pensions that own stocks, Joel. So this is a totally flawed argument.
Exactly, and on top of that, something to take note of are these the Gini coefficient, which measures income inequality. That fails to take into account the wealth transfers that occur through our tax code. If you actually take that into account, suddenly the United States is actually far more equal than the United Kingdom, Australia, and Japan.
Joel, stay on that. What you mean is that not on tax returns either, or Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, none of that shows up on tax returns. So the Democrats and the media continue to ignore all of this in the income inequality fight. And I'm telling you, Joel, this is going to come up in 2020. Again and again, they're whipping fastballs by the American people. Let's get to what's going on here in New York. And this is a new Siena poll showing the majority of New Yorkers, 2/3, say that losing Amazon was bad for New York. They blame Alexandria Cortez as a, quote, villain for chasing away Amazon. But Joel, you know, the quote has been that Democrats used to protest wars. Now they protest jobs. Joel, it's something even bigger than Alexandria Cortez. It's New York's high tax and regulations, not just Cortez, right?
Yes, that is what's driving people away. If you add in the state tax rate in New York combined with the New York City tax rate, it's one of the worst tax environments in the country. And what the Tax Cut and Jobs Act has done, it's made the United States as a whole far more competitive. Up until a year ago, we had the highest tax rate on businesses in the entire industrialized world. Now we're right about the international average. And what we've seen over the past years has been nothing short of phenomenal. People like to say this is a sugar buzz economy. I would say this is more like an economy that's eating meat instead of cotton candy. And if the progressives aren't careful, they're going to end up killing the goose that's laying that golden egg.
Joel, you just mentioned all of my favorite food groups, meat and, no, I don't eat meat, cotton candy and sugar, fantastic. Joel, great to see you. Come back soon. Great stuff and great perspective there. That was Joel Griffith of the Heritage Foundation. Good stuff there. Next on the